Good day, and how hope everyone is doing okay today. This is Dr. Wheeler, and this is week 1 and 2. And we are, no, we're in week 3. Oh my goodness, we are already in week 3. And this is a preview and a mini overview of the chapter that you had to read in Amran about teaching in Ed Psych. I apologize. I tried to do this in another format and it didn't work out. I couldn't upload it. So it's going to be looking a little clumsy, but you'll get the gist of the information for the most part. I will work on trying to find another screen capturing mode so that you can have full screen of the PowerPoint lecture and things like that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So today I'm gonna provide you a general overview of Ed Psych, Ed Psychology, or Ed Psych as I usually say it, and its connection to our field of teaching and learning. We're going to review certain concepts, key concepts in Ed Psych. We're going to talk about the role of Ed Psych in our teaching profession and why it's important. And we're going to talk about how we connect it through culturally responsive and learning standards, but also how we connect it through teaching and learning within the pre-K through 12 environment. So I'd like each of you to just take a few minutes to take a moment, take out a sheet of paper if you like me and you like to write things down and have a visual, or just take a moment to think about how would you define Ed Psych? Whether you've read the chapter or not, how do you define it? And why do you feel it's important to our teaching profession? So I'll give you about a minute to do that. Remember, this is in your own words. All right. So we were in the class, I would be able to ask you all what you came up with and what did you think about it. So now I'm going to give you the working definition that we're working with is when we think about EdSci, we're thinking about how people learn, including topics like outcome, instructional processes, individual learning differences, the field of study that focuses on understanding cognitive, emotional, and social processes involved in one's learning. We also need to think about the aim of educational psychology is to optimize learning and provide insight into new instructional strategies and techniques that will enable our students to obtain their optimal academic performance and academic achievement. So, a few concepts I want us to concentrate on and think about that are in the text and that we will revisit on various occasions within this semester is elaboration. And elaboration is defined as an effective strategy used to capitalize on the student's prior knowledge and learning about a topic or subject matter, and it expands the learning on that topic. Amran likes to say that students learn information more easily and remember it longer when it is connected to a previous learning or prior learning experiences that they may have. One of the things that I think helps that is when we think about creating meaningful learning experiences. And meaningful learning experience and elaboration to me go hand in hand because in meaningful learning experiences, we are connecting new ideas and content to memorable either childhood events, previous coursework, or just a general working knowledge that our students may have. This type of learning is viewed as meaningful learning because it is connected to our students. They find themselves in it. When you hear about real world application, when you hear about teaching problem solving skills, when you hear about learning from a student's community, their own experience or their lived experiences, these concepts enhance one's learning and memory of concepts, new ideas, and principles. When we think about conceptual change, this is the process of revising and revisiting existing knowledge and ideas that we may have. But as we learn new things, they may conflict with that information. A prime example is learning our history of the United States and how for decades it has been omitted certain things that have happened from a social justice standpoint and from an inclusive standpoint and an equitable standpoint. Certain people's histories or her stories have been excluded in the landscape of learning about the history of the United States or the history of other countries. One of the things that I say in my history classes is we learn history from the perspective of those who win, not from those who were colonized, those who were attacked, or those who are seen as the victim. So when we're thinking about conceptual change, we're thinking about the ability to think differently, the ability to take new information in and work with that cognitive dissonance of how it is changing us and helping us think about things in broader, more elaborate ways. And abstract thinking is a concept that we will talk about in more detail, but we understand from cognitive development models that that happens later in life and with maturity. Pedagogy. You will hear the word pedagogy a lot. Engaged pedagogy, culturally inclusive pedagogy, restorative justice pedagogy, embodied pedagogy. These kind of things are talking about the art of teaching and employing various skills and strategies to aid our students in learning and connecting to the material so that it is a meaningful learning experience. Reflective teaching is when we take time to question our methods and our modes, take time to think about our teaching strategies, take time to think about why we're using a certain assessment tool or what worked in a lesson, what didn't work in a lesson, and why. And seeking out advice and working with our community of other teachers, scholarship, literature, other communities to help develop our craft. We also want to think about this concept of self efficacy. Self efficacy is the belief that one is capable of completing a task or performing and reaching one's goal. And this is not only important for our students, but it is also important for you as a future teacher and educator to believe that you are good at what you do, to believe in yourself and your skills and your abilities as an educator and as a teacher. So, some core areas of study that are included within EdPsych. One, we have the various learning theories. A few to name is behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism. We also we'll talk about developmental stages. Some of you have been exposed to both of these in 306. Cognitive stage of theory of learning, your social emotional developmental stage of learning, moral and cognitive reasoning ability. Motivation is another concept. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, what it motivates you internally, what motivates you externally, but also self regulation and problem solving skills. And finally, the concept of assessment and the role of us that assessment plays, whether it's formal or informal, and how our students learn, how we evaluate, our lessons, how we evaluate them learning, how we evaluate and look at what they are learning, whether it's project based, inquiry based, discovery based, or even standardized testing. But how are we formally and informally evaluating and assessing how our students are learning and how they are proceeding through the material? So I want to switch gears to talk a little bit about how Ed Psych informs our teaching. First and foremost, you see the first bullet, it helps us understand student behavior and learning. An example of this is we have a teacher that notices one student thrives doing group activities, but struggles with independent work. By recognizing that this student has a strong interpersonal learning style, the teacher can adjust lessons to include more group based tasks, therefore improving the student's engagement, but also their performance. When we guide and create effective instructional strategies, a teacher can use this concept and theory of multiple intelligence to diversify their instructional strategies, incorporating visual aids, hands on activities, and auditory learning methods to accommodate the diverse learners in the class and diverse students, and ensuring that each student has a pathway towards success. How does it aid us in classroom management and fostering a learning environment? Well, one example of this is the theory of behaviorism and using positive and negative reinforcement. We use a reward system for our students, whether it be verbal praise or a point system or a group contingency reward like a party or extra recess time for students that demonstrate good behavior. And this leads to a more positive classroom atmosphere and reduces disruptive behavior. Finally, when we think about how ed psych informs our teaching, it's data driven. It helps us make decisions. It in analyzing and assessing and looking at our evaluations, looking at what we do, looking at research methods and studies, we can notice the majority of our students might be struggling with a math concept after a test. We might think of how do we reteach this concept using alternative methods, targeting the areas where looking at the assessment or this test or whatever we used, how it shows we help those students in the areas that they had more difficulty and we improve their learning as well as their test-based performance. How do pre-K teachers use this? It helps them understand child development. A pre-K teacher can recognize that her students in the pre-operational stage of development according to Piaget, and she understands that they are still learning to use logic, or they have difficulty understanding perspectives other than their own. So the teacher incorporates hands-on learning activities that allow students to explore their environment through play and visual aid. Tailoring instruction to young children's developmental needs involves knowing your young children have shorter attention spans. A kindergarten teacher could make breaks in lessons and make the lessons shorter with more interactive segments, using music, movement, and stories to teach concepts and recognizing that the students need more frequent changes in activity to stay engaged. And finally, creating a foundation of lifelong learning through play based and discovery based methods. Let's think about a preschool teacher that sets up various learning stations in the classroom where children can engage in free play and discovery, such as a sensory table with sand and water, or a reading corner, or a building block area. These activities encourages children to explore their interests while developing problem solving skills as well as fostering creativity. Last but certainly not least, let's think about how K through 12 teachers utilize EdPsych. By adapting teaching methods to diverse learners, a middle school teacher can use differentiated instruction by presenting content in various forms, whether it be video, reading materials, or hands on experiences, and catering to visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. This ensures that students with different learning preferences have access to material in a way that best suits their learning style or preference. Recognizing and addressing learning disabilities and special needs. Let's think about a third grade teacher that notices that one of her students has difficulty reading out loud and completing written tasks. After consulting with the school's special education team, she might implement accommodations such as providing audio books and allowing the students to give verbal responses. These minor adjustments ensure that the students can learn effectively without being held back by their specific learning disability. Engaging our students in engagement and enhancing our students' engagement and motivation. How about a high school teacher that uses project-based learning approach where students create presentations on real-world issues that interest them, like climate change or social justice? By allowing students to choose their topics and work collaboratively, the teacher taps into intrinsic motivation, but also leading to an increased engagement and active participation in the learning process because we are tapping into meaningful learning. We are tapping into that elaboration that we talked about because we're allowing them to connect to what they know and what they care about. And how does it promote social and emotional learning? How about a fifth grade teacher that incorporates a daily check in? It could be a circle, it could be whatever, where students express how they're feeling and share experiences. This activity fosters emotional awareness and empathy among students, but it also helps develop a better self management and relationship skills. Additionally, the teacher can integrate conflict resolution lessons to teach responsible decision making and promote some more supportive classroom community. If you notice, I also use check ins and things like that in my own classes because I think it's very important for me to know how you're doing, what's going on in your world, how you're feeling, and also just center us to get to the lesson at hand, but checking in on you as a human being, you as an individual. That helps young people as well as college students feel seen and heard. So that's pretty much the lecture and the summation of pages 1 through 8 in Ed Psych. If you have any questions or comments, you can bring them to class next week, or you can email me at d-wheeler@neiu.edu. I hope you have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you next week. Have a blessed day or evening or whenever you're looking at this. Take care.